thank you for the well wishes on social media, a number of you, for my mom yesterday celebrating her birthday. And I passed on those well wishes. She is not really a social media maven. God love her. I think that's a plus. It's an added value, not a minus. But she was enamored to hear that last night when we chatted. Last week, speaking of chat, we discussed with the good doctor here the issue of ADHD, diagnosed, and you know what kind of doors were open in terms of job and career for people who have ADHD. And surprisingly to me a little bit, there are a lot out there, some really great opportunities that are perfect for those who have been diagnosed. But there also comes a flip side to that. There are some jobs that might not be exactly perfect. So let's welcome in Dr. John Braccio, Regional Psychological Services in East Lansing. The podcasts are always at drjohnb.com. Good morning, sir. Welcome.
Well, good morning to you. Good morning to you, Dave, and glad to be here with you. And
Thank you.
last week we did. We talked about good jobs, good things that would fit the personalities of the persons with ADHD. Again, just reminding the hallmarks or the characteristics certainly would include lack of focus, inattention, hyperactivity, impulsivity, procrastination. If you have some combination of these characteristics, it certainly can impact you in terms of job seeking. And I've worked with countless people over many years with some of these characteristics, and they just are in jobs that don't fit, and it impacts how successful they are. They often are losing jobs or having problems on the job site. It impacts their ability to interact with other persons because obviously if you're not happy at work, it's going to have a negative impact kind of on the rest of your life. So when we're looking at jobs, we're looking at things that would fit the characteristics of persons. Remember, there are upsides to ADHD also in terms of creativity, having a lot of energy, being able to at times hyper-focus on activities that need to be done. So the wrong type of jobs generally for persons with ADHD would include like the CPA accountant, very technical kinds of things. The planner of events, someone who has to have tremendous detail, be focusing on things coming up. Executive assistant, somebody who's trying to make an executive be efficient, be effective, keeping up with the details of things that need to do. Assembly line worker, just in terms of the rote type of thing. Then routine and monotonous work in any setting, but particularly in a cubicle environment, having someone in a cubicle that has all this energy, lack of focus, hears all these sounds, everything around him. That is definitely not a good place to be. In a micromanaged environment with very specific rules and expectations, and then with controlling bosses. Now, these are the kinds of jobs that are the recipe for the person with ADHD to not be successful. And unfortunately, when people are looking for jobs, they're not always taking into account what would be the right place for them. And sometimes the right type of jobs may not be available or may not seem to be available. But when someone gets in these kinds of jobs and with the personality of the person with the ADHD, it can lead to chaos for the person and a lot of problems. So I always encourage people, and anyone listening now, if you have these focus issues, inattention issues, hyperactivity issues, procrastination issues, and you're having a lot of problems in the workplace, you have to take a look at yourself and you have to say, wait a minute now, am I in the right place? Is this the right type of job that I ought to have? And when people do that, it is surprising how they do take a look and they will decide that maybe I do need to be picking up new skills, or if you work for the state, try to go to a different department, a different activity. And a lot of people just assume, well, this is the way I am, this is the way I am in this job, so I'm just going to have problems. And I never take that view that that's a good idea.
I got another one for you, air traffic controller. Okay.
Well,
that might be on the list too.
Could I make a comment on that? The only thing that makes that a little different remember, one of the odd things of persons with ADHD is they have this ability to really focus on things that they really like and they're really attached to. So you could have somebody, now I think in most cases you would be right, but there are some people that thrive on tension, thrive on the potential problem areas that come with traffic controlling. Now that would be a person that could fit there, but if a person didn't have an interest in that, which could be the case maybe with most persons, and I agree with you.
Then let me dial back and say air traffic control at a very low volume airport. It might not be the perfect job, but now when people come to you for therapy, do you frequently see that those that you're treating for ADHD also fall into one of these categories if they're just not in the right job, or do people with ADHD generally gravitate towards something more appropriate for them? What do you find with those who are your clients and patients?
Well, obviously, the answer to that is some do, some don't. I think if a person does do it, okay, and they're coming in to see me, if they're in the right type of a work, then they may not be coming in to see me. They may be just functioning and doing very well, like salespeople would be an example, people on commission. There are people that can thrive with ADHD, and it only becomes a problem when it impacts you in a few areas of your life. Now, the persons that I would be seeing that are having problems functioning at work with ADHD, often they're in the wrong job. They're in the wrong type situation. So those are things, if they're meeting with me, we take a look at. We'll say, well, tell me what happens in the cubicle where you are. And the person says, I just can't stand it. I have to get up, but I'm told that, that I can't be doing that. I hear all these noises around me. I can't focus. I'm having trouble getting the work done that has to get done during the day. So it's persons that I would be working with that have issues with ADHD. There are a lot of people, enormous numbers of people that do very well in the world. In fact, actually, there are positive aspects, and we've talked about this in the past, that when you have more energy, less time you're sleeping, and you can focus for long periods of time on something, that it can turn you into a very, very successful person. So it's the persons that I would see that are not achieving or not functioning and not satisfied in the workplace, and they know something is wrong, but they're not always saying it's the problem is the way I'm wired, and there's really a need for me to find an environment where I can thrive. That becomes a main characteristic in terms of persons that I would be working with, or what people in my field would be working with.
It's interesting because I think listening to this, listeners would say, oh, I know someone who matches that description. If it's not them, they know somebody like that. I know somebody here in town who's very high achieving, has a job that's, facing in front of a lot of people all the time, doesn't sleep a whole lot, doesn't want to sleep a whole lot, doesn't have a problem with that, seemingly thrives in this kind of environment. And you just described that person to a T. But if they're in the right job and right career, they're going to thrive versus the opposite, which is the opposite.
Well, see, that is true. And it's also a statement of everybody is one boss away from a bad job, because if you've had a good job, a good position, where you've had a certain level of autonomy, where you were asked to do a job and then get it done, and if there were issues, bring it up. But then you get someone who wants to micromanage, be involved in every little detail. What are you doing? Why are you doing that? Give me emails every 2 hours in terms of what's going on. Then a job that was good can turn into something bad. So often it can depend on who the manager is, who the boss is, the type of job. But generally speaking, the jobs that require great detail, that are monotonous, that are really routine, those are generally not at all the good type of job for somebody who has typical characteristics of ADHD. There's really a need for more excitement, more autonomy, more risk-taking even, and more just a real pure enjoyment from the challenge of the activity, in this case, which would be work. So, and we'll see that you can see this carries over in life. I mean, people that are going to be doing more outgoing, more exciting, more dynamic. It's the personality type. It fits in. So if a person is almost imprisoned in a bad work situation, the point is not to say, I have a problem. It's more to say, I need to find the right type of a job. Now, I'm not talking about people that are ineffective, choose not to make good decisions. I'm talking about people that really want to be doing well, but they're just misplaced in life and the work situation. And those are people that really need to take a look and say, hold on, take a time out and say, I need to relook at my life. I need to relook at my career. I need to relook at my skill sets and this type thing to lead a more happy, satisfying life. It doesn't really make sense to spend a third of your life in a job or in a work situation that doesn't fit your particular personality and the way you approach life. No, not at all. Very bad.
No, and by the way, listeners, we say that for, and I know you do, that goes for everybody. That goes beyond ADHD. I mean,
of course.
If you're not, if you're not happy in your situation, it's time to take a look at a change before change comes to you. One way or the other, change is coming if you're not happy and if it's not going well. But these specific, go ahead.
Well, one thing I was going to say, it is amazing to me how many people over the years I've talked to that are really not well placed at work, and they somehow just stick it out, stay in there, and never really take a look and say to themselves, I really need to be looking and doing something different. They just don't do that. They get stuck and they just stay there unhappily, actually.
Yeah, and it's tough. I mean, maybe it's family obligations. Maybe, the money outweighs the gig. That happens. But it's sometimes it's hard to break away. But that's as a general thing, that's another segment. We'll have to hold that for the future. But the ability to break away and do that would be a good one, because it can certainly affect your mental health and your good mental frame of mind. Bad jobs if you have ADHD. We detailed some of these career choices. There's good reason why, if you have ADHD and your unique personality that way, these will not be ideal for you, and you need to look in a different direction. The Good Doctor here. The podcast will be at drjohnb.com very shortly, and many, many, many other subjects there to peruse. It's always good to talk to you, my friend.
Same to you, Dave, and congratulations on your mom.
Thank you very much. No, that's kind. Thank you, sir. We're coming back on the Morning Wake Up, 1320 WILS.